Hi everyone! You've been sharing tips under my previous videos on how to get rid of burnt leather edges. I tested them all, and this applies to any diode laser engraver. For this test I used 2mm vegetable tanned leather or 5 ounces leather. The optical power of my laser is 10 watts. The speed and power settings stayed the same throughout all the tests. By default, I am assuming everyone is following basic safety rules. Your laser engraver is enclosed and the smoke is being vented outside. First, and this is very important, what surface are you cutting your leather on? A solid surface? Oh! There's the residue from burning stain trapped underneath the leather. The same thing will happen with any leather. A honeycomb bed will solve this problem. The cutting results on a honeycomb bed are much better. The better the airflow, the less the leather suffers. But simply placing the honeycomb bed on table isn't enough. You need to give the smoke room to move freely. The solution is to raise honeycomb bed a few centimeters above the table. The higher the better. Some manufacturers offer stands like this as an optional accessory. But it's easy to make one yourself. Second, and just as important, is an air assist compressor. It doesn't just blow smoke and soot away from the cutting area. It also helps protect the leather head from contamination. So, a honeycomb bed and an air assist compressor solve about 50% of the problem. Of course, the more powerful and faster the laser, the cleaner the cut will be. And a CO2 laser engraver should cut even cleaner. But first, they are expensive, and second, I don't have one. If you have a diode laser more powerful than 10 watts or CO2 laser, let me know how clean your leather cuts are. Let's have some fun! I went through the advice under my videos, on Reddit and in various leatherworking communities. One common recommendation is masking tape. On top of the leather, on both sides, underneath. Okay, let's test it. The first one looks clean. Oh, that's really bad. That worked even worse than a solid surface. And this one too. So definitely, masking tape underneath is a bad idea. So far, masking tape on top is winning. But let's save conclusions for the end. The second method is water. I'll completely dip one piece in water, just for a second. And I lightly dampen the other one only on top side. The lightly dampened leather gave an excellent result. But the piece that was dipped in water wasn't fully cut through and ended up scorched. And it even picked up marks from the honeycomb bed. We have 3 winners. I don't see much difference between these two pieces of leather. If you look closely, the untreated leather actually looks a bit better. But I really liked the lightly dampened method. The cut quality is the same, but the smell is definitely less intense. The smell of laser cut leather is unpleasant. Anyone who owns a laser engraver knows exactly what I mean. I found a ton of tips on how to get rid of that smell. I buried the leather pieces in baking soda, in salt. I gave them full spot treatment. They even meditated outdoors in the fresh air. And nothing helped. The reason for that wonderful aroma is the burnt edges of the leather. Until you remove the soot, the smell isn't going anywhere. You can use a damp cloth or some fine grit sandpaper. You can do that around the outer edge, but what about the stitching holes? If I'm not planning to dye the leather, I don't cut the holes, I engrave them and punch them by hand. I don't want light-colored thread getting dirty from the holes. The unpleasant smoke smell usually disappears after a few hours. Sometimes I mix methods. Some parts are laser cut, others are done entirely by hand. If you're planning to dye the leather, then after dye, finish and tokonole, there won't be any unpleasant smell at all. You can buy all these patterns on my website or in my Etsy shop. Links are in the video description. Let's sum up. A raised honeycomb bed and an air assist compressor will reduce scorching of the leather, and lightly dampening the surface noticeably reduces the unpleasant smell. A laser engraver is a fantastic workshop tool as long as you understand that it helps with the handwork but doesn't replace it. Are there any alternatives? I bought a leather press, not an alternative but another great tool for the workshop. I fell in love with this little guy the moment I saw it. But I will talk about press and working with it in another video. Because trust me, there are plenty of nuances there too. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you next time.